So when people are, scaling, what are common issues you see?
I think common problems, right out of just how much JVM memory should be allocated. I think uh, a lot of times people are unsure as far as what that number should be. Whether, sometimes they may give too much memory as opposed to, just finding that right number, whether it's a gig, 2 gigs. So some of the garbage collection, uh, settings are also questions that people have that we can address. We'll talk about that in the session as well. There's new things with garbage collection that you can use, or you could just use the default ColdFusion settings as well, which 90% of folks use. So we'll address that in the session.
Right. And for people who haven't really dug into the JVM, the whole Java virtual machine running there, and it kind of builds up the amount of memory it's using. And then every now and again, it does what's called garbage collection and cleans up the unused memory. And that's what you're talking about there.
Yeah. Well, those are some, as far as early obstacles, connector, how to set up your connector, and some best practices with that. There's something of an admin manager within the connector, very few people know about, that can be used, let's say, for development or even production if you wanted to. That gives you some key metrics that we'll demo in the session in April.
I imagine most people haven't even heard of that. So that'll be really cool if they can see that in your session.
Yep. Yeah. I'll actually do a live demo with some load testing, and we'll see the sessions go from one server to the other, and we'll be able to see that traffic inside that Tomcat connector admin console page.
Any other common things you see when you're helping people out with scaling their servers?
Yeah, I would say having a plan for when things go wrong. So knowing where to look. I talk about putting in some alerts that will generate snapshots, which is usually where I go when I find a problem. I will definitely, I will want to have a snapshot at the exact moment of the issue. And 9 times out of 10, if I have that, I can solve the problem pretty quickly, because it'll tell me whether it's a database issue or it's a code issue, and right down to the line number that probably is creating the issue.
And when you say alerts, you're talking about the ColdFusion server monitor built into ColdFusion, right, or Fusion Reactor, or something else? Or?
All of the above, right? Because you could certainly do all of the above. But I think the unresponsive alert is one everybody has, and probably everybody should be using. If enterprise, that is easy to implement, and you could tune that to how many unresponsive requests. In a troubleshooting mode, you'd probably set that to 1 at 30 seconds, and then generate the stack trace. So we'll get into some more details during the session. But yeah, so certainly that's an area, and having a plan for when things go wrong, and knowing what you're going to be doing, what you're going to want to be looking at. I think a lot of times today people, they just they don't even know that where the log files are a lot of times. So you end up looking at the log files to stack traces, and then resolving the issue that way.
Yeah, well, the log files can be pretty cryptic too. So
correct. Yeah. Yeah, and there's more than one. So you have to there's the exception, there's the error, there's the application server. So there's several ones you have to know which specific one to look for. Oh, and you mentioned Fusion Reactor too. So yeah, exactly. If any monitoring tool is going to help you get visibility, going to help you. Fusion Reactor also can give you a stack trace at any time, any moment in time. So that's and it also keeps rolling logs of every request, as well as the resources at the time of any request, and also what JDBC calls were done, how many records they pulled back from the database. So several ways of getting more visibility into your
Yeah, I think Fusion Reactor has a lot of good things. In fact, I did a podcast episode with David Tattersall from Integral, who made Fusion Reactor, and I'll link that into the show notes for people who are interested in that, because they just came out with a cloud version that can like store enormous amounts of data because it doesn't have to go on the server. So
Yeah,
lots